questions to the Prime Minister. Question number 1, Mr. Keith Mann.
Mr. Speaker, sir, this morning I presided at a meeting of the Cabinet and had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall be having further meetings later today.
Mr. Keith Mann.
During the course of her busy day, will my right honourable friend consider the plight of community charge payers in Lancashire, where the socialist-controlled Lancashire County Council's provisional budget is the equivalent of a 30% increase in the rates? Does she agree with me that this contrasts sharply with the Conservative-controlled borough of Westminster, which has recently announced a community charge below £200 and below the government's estimate? Will she therefore consider, with her right honourable friend, the Secretary of State for the Environment, community charge capping Lancashire, which is both high spending and incompetent?
Mr. Speaker, I believe there is no justification for the kind of increases which my honourable friend has just mentioned in the case of Lancashire. My right honourable friend, the Secretary of State for the Environment, has made it perfectly clear that if authorities continue to spend excessively, he will not hesitate to cap them. They should have more consideration for their local residents. I'm very glad it is my honourable friend that Westminster's Conservative Council has given such an excellent lead in having a community charge of below £200. Other councils will follow.
Neil Kinnock.
Mr. Speaker, on the subject of capping, could the Prime Minister tell us what thought she's given to imposing a cap on mortgage rates?
Mr. Speaker, there are now some 3 million more people able to take out mortgages than there were in 1979, and many more than that who own their own homes than there were some 10 years ago. That is a very good record.
Mr. Speaker, why can't the Prime Minister stop dodging the question and simply own up to the fact that the all-time record mortgage rises are due entirely to her economic policy?
Also, Mr. Speaker, due to our economic policy, as the right honourable gentleman may know if he's looked at social trends today, is that real households' disposable income is up 25% between 1981 and 98. That there are now 15 million owner-occupied homes compared to 11.6 million under Labour. That is due to the excellence of Conservative economic policy.
Mr. Speaker, through the use of the Prime Minister's word also, I accept her confession.
Mr. Speaker, my right honourable friends and chancellors have handled our economic policy excellently, and I note that well over 99% of an increased number of mortgage holders manage to pay their mortgage repayments very well and will find it of great benefit. It's a very good investment.
John Gorst.
I defer my honourable friend for the reply that I gave some moments ago.
Gorst.
Could the Prime Minister say whether, in the light of the question put to her by the Leader of the Opposition, it was due to her economic policies that the level of manufacturing in this country has for the second successive year gone up? Could she also say whether it's due to the same reason that the level of unemployment in this country is at virtually the lowest level for Western Europe? And finally, could she say whether eventually this will make some contribution towards bringing the level of interest rates down?
Mr. Speaker, as my honourable friend has observed, the figures for manufacturing investment last year have just been published, Manufacturing investment in the year 1988 was an all-time record. The figures for last year have raised that record to a new high level, which is 2 years of excellent manufacturing investment. With regard also to the employment figures published today, we have a record number of jobs in this country, more than ever before. Unemployment seasonally adjusted has fallen. That is very, very good news. With regard to inflation, as my honourable friend knows, we will always take whatever measures it is necessary to take to keep bearing down on inflation.
Mr. Gavin Strang.
But will the Prime Minister take time this afternoon to consider the plight of the hundreds of thousands of council tenants who've been encouraged by this government to buy their council house? Is it not time the government reconsidered its policy of cutting support for council housing in order to bring pressure on council tenants to buy their houses by forcing up council rents?
Mr. Speaker, as the honourable gentleman is very well aware, we put through a policy of purchasing council houses by their tenants, a policy which was bitterly opposed by the Labour Party, a policy from which many, many people have profited and are very grateful for that. We shall continue to pursue that policy, and in Scotland, as he knows, it's gone further to Scottish homes. It has been a very good bargain for all who have partaken of the opportunity they've had from this government.
Mr. Michael Marshall.
Number 3, sir.
I refer my honourable friend to the reply which I gave some moments ago.
Mr. Michael Marshall.
In a week in which the Interparliamentary Union delegations have returned from Bulgaria, Czechoslovakia, East Germany and Romania, would my right honourable friend take this opportunity of assessing the current state of our political, economic and social links with the countries of Central and Eastern Europe? And in particular, would she care to speculate on how these developments are seen in the light of latest discussions on German reunification?
Mr. Speaker, as my honourable friend is aware, this government has been very active both in contacts and with grants to Eastern Europe. My right honourable friend, the Foreign Secretary, and my honourable friend, the Minister of State at the Foreign Office, have both visited a number of East European countries. We've recently had the Polish Prime Minister here, previously the Hungarian Prime Minister, and we hope to have President Havel of Czechoslovakia here soon. We've contributed to both the Polish and Hungarian stabilisation funds, to the know-how fund, and also substantially through Europe to much extra food for Poland and also to medical equipment. So all of that is going very well indeed. With regard to German unification, as my honourable friend is aware, we are pledged to support German unification by long-standing agreements. Our concern has been that we have a proper framework in which to make certain that security and stability in Europe is ensured. And that was we recently succeeded in getting that at the Ottawa conference, which has just ended, in which we have a framework of the 4 Berlin powers plus the 2 Germanys, in which to ensure that we should also need...
Order! In order! Prime Minister.
Ask questions, I expect to answer them. We shall also need
Order! Well, order! These are very important matters.
We shall also need an appropriate framework in which to discuss the implications in the European economic community, particularly in regard to agriculture, trade and financial arrangements.
Mr. Molyneux!
Is the Prime Minister aware that the BBC plans a panorama programme with the avowed object of denigrating the Ulster Defence Regiment? Will the Prime Minister undertake to ensure that the government refutes this slander by publishing the true facts about that regiment?
Mr. Speaker, I had heard that a programme on the UDR was being prepared. I most earnestly hope that it will not denigrate the Ulster Defence Regiment. They're a very fine body of men and women whose lives are at risk, whether they are on or off duty, and I hope the Right Honourable Gentleman's fears will not come to pass, but I do suggest that he contacts the Chairman and Director General of the BBC if he is in any doubt.
Mr. David Martin.
Number 4, sir.
I refer my honourable friend's reply which I gave some moments ago.
Martin.
Would my right honourable friend agree that for various reasons, including the spreading and contracting of AIDS, any proposal to reduce the age of consent to homosexual activities is wholly unacceptable and utterly crackers?
Mr. Speaker, I agree with my honourable friend. I think any such proposal would give totally the wrong signal at this time, would give offence to many, many people, and would worry many, many more, and would give us great problems in the future. I would be very much against reducing the age of consent.
Mr. Current House.
Number 5, sir.
Number 5.
The honourable gentleman to the reply which I gave some moments ago.
Mr. Current House.
None of them voted for the SE.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm sure the Prime Minister is aware that 10,000 farmers and farm workers leave the land every year.
She don't care.
Will she tell the consumers of this country who is going to produce the food requirements needed by the turn of the century, and what is she going to do about this very serious situation?
Mr. Speaker, but as the honourable gentleman is aware, we are not short of food in the European community, and we're not short of food either from America or from a number of other places. Indeed, one of our problems has been a surplus of food, hence we've had to have the quotas for milk and so on. If there's any prospect of the Eastern Germany coming into the community, or certainly being reunified with Germany, that also will be a great producing area, and so will add to supplies and not diminish them. Also, many of the Eastern European countries are only too anxious to send their supplies to us, which can cause problems to us. So I don't think the particular problem which the honourable gentleman outlines will arise by the turn of the century.
Mr. Tom Clark.
Number 6, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable gentleman to reply which I gave some moments ago.
Mr. Clark.
Doesn't the Prime Minister agree with Norman Shrapnel that too much silence is much more ominous than too much noise in a parliamentary democracy? Why then does she fear an inquiry into the Colin Wallace affair?
Mr. Speaker, I have already replied on that matter, and so has my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State for Defence, and my honourable friend, the Minister of State for Defence, and I have nothing further to add to what they have said.
Mr. Dudley Fishburne.
Number 8.
I refer my honourable friend's reply which I gave some moments ago.
Mr. Fishburne.
Uncertainty that has hung over the future of the English National Opera and the English National Ballet, of which I am a governor, has passed. Will my right honourable friend please send her best wishes to both those two national companies for continued artistic excellence, supported by generous government grants, good management, and a high level of private sponsorship.
Mr. Speaker, I gladly join my honourable friend in sending my best wishes to those two most excellent organisations, the English National Opera and the English National Ballet. I'm delighted they're out of financial difficulty. I think in the arts in this country now, Mr. Speaker, we have excellent private sponsorship due to the prosperity and generosity of industry, and a high level of government support for the arts, and indeed in the coming years we shall put it up by some 22% to ensure that that high level is maintained and that London remains the most distinguished centre in the world.
Alan Williams.
Number 8, sir. I refer the honourable gentleman to reply which I gave some moments ago.
Williams.
Now that the government has agreed to pay 100% compensation for the victims of mad cow disease, would the Prime Minister agree to introduce a similar scheme of compensation for the millions of victims of her poll tax?
Mr. Speaker, if I might answer the serious part of the honourable gentleman's question, my right honourable friend, the Minister of Agriculture, announced the 100% compensation for the mad cow disease. We are expecting an increasing amount because of the long incubation period, and he thought that under those circumstances it was well to go from the 50% to 100%. With regard to a community charge, it is the best way and fairest way of paying tax on local authority, far better than the alternative honourable members of the roof tax, which is quite ridiculous.